Before I get into today's episode, just want to remind everybody, we do have a website on JKS. The link is in the description below. All you have to do is click on that. We got some podcasts on there. We got some blogs. A lot of fun stuff. So if you're craving some more sports content around this time, you can definitely find some there. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoy this video. So Nick Kwiatkoski has been signed by the Las Vegas Raiders. That is quite the name to say, but yes, that has happened, and honestly, I like this move a lot. I mean, Corey Littleton got a lot of the people talking about him since he's probably the more notable player going to Vegas. But, now Vegas, all of a sudden, they're making some moves in a big way. They really are. I mean, let's be honest, their defense was not very good last year at all. It was actually pretty bad. But you know what? They're adding a lot of pieces. They're definitely building. They're going to get Jonathan Abram back, who I think will be a huge difference. So they essentially get 3 first-rounders this year because, they're getting the first-rounder who didn't play last year, and then they have 2 more, one from the Bears trade. And on top of that, they're making a ton of moves in free agency, adding a bunch of talent. I mean, the Raiders are ready to compete this year. I think it's that simple, quite frankly. One thing that's worth mentioning about Kwiatkoski is that he's never been the kind of guy who has stayed healthy. I mean, his career high in snaps was last season when he had 512, and in that season, he was hurt for a decent part of the year. He only played in about 9 games, so, the injury thing is a concern, but at the same time, I do like Kwiatkoski. I think he's a really good player, really good run stopper, and can also play in coverage well. And I love when a player wears a number that starts with 4. Something about the 40s numbers, whether it's a fullback, a tight end, or a linebacker. I don't know what it is. It just seems like a good football number. 44. I love that number. But anyways, let's get into some film study. We'll start things off with this play, and what's going to happen is that it's pretty simple. You're going to have it's going to be a right guard and right tackle. They double team a Chicago interior lineman. Then the right guard moves up, is going to block Kwiatkoski, and that's the way this play is going to work. However, after the ball is snapped, you notice that, for one thing, it takes a little bit longer for that Green Bay player to get in position, but he should be in position right now. So at this point, if you're Kwiatkoski, you kind of have 2 options. The first of which is try to just run to, it would be his right, to try to run over and see if you can make a play that way. But of course, that's tough because a Green Bay player could easily just continue pushing you in that direction. And if Jamal Williams, who has the ball right now, doesn't run through that gap, you've taken yourself out of the play. However, what 44 is going to do here is he just reads the play. He reads where Williams is going and runs over to the other gap and makes a tackle right there instead. Just a good read more than anything. And honestly, in the running game for a linebacker, that's really important. It's just making those reads. It's oftentimes less about just your skill set or your speed, your tackling ability. It's more so about your reads sometime. And he makes really good reads. And I think that's a key way that he was able to have some success in Chicago. This plays another example where what's going to happen on this one is that, so first things first, nothing too fancy. You see that the center, right guard, and right tackle are each blocking those 3 players, all one-on-one matchups. The guard's moving up to block a linebacker who isn't Kwiatkoski, and instead what's going to happen is that the fullback moves up and blocks him, which should take away everyone in the middle of the field. Gurley can just pick a gap and run through, and as you see right when the ball is snapped, you're going to notice that number 44 himself is running through a certain gap, and so the tight end says, okay, I see where you are. I'm going to then try to run through that gap, block you out of the way, and if he can take Kwiatkoski out of the way, there should be a room for Gurley to run over there, get through, and try to gain some yards. But what's going to be really unique here is, can Kwiatkoski get around this block? And that answer is going to be a resounding yes, because he figures out which gap Gurley is running through and moves over and makes the tackle that way. Those are just smart plays. It's not so much great plays, it's smart plays. It's using your head, realizing what's going on, and this is the kind of thing where it's like, you know how people say don't fall in love with someone at the combine, because at the combine, you look at someone and say, oh wow, they're fast, they're strong. Well, sometimes it's important to just have a good football player, and listen, I mean, Kwiatkoski, his measurables aren't necessarily, terrible by any means, but they're nothing to write home about. I mean, he's 6'2", 240 pounds. He ran a 4.73. Not the best. That's probably why he was a fourth round selection, but he uses his head. He knows what position to put himself into, which is why he is a solid player. He's a good player. I would say he's a very good player. I do think Littleton is better, but that's not because Kwiatkoski is bad. That's because I think Littleton's just better. And I also think at 3 years, $21 million, it's a pretty reasonable deal, especially when there is an out after the second year where they could get rid of him for no money. So, getting a 27-year-old guy who is a pretty good linebacker on a relatively, fair salary, I would say, I think for Las Vegas, they're definitely feeling pretty good about that move. One thing is that even though he might not be the biggest, it doesn't mean he's not the strongest. I mean, look at this play. It's going to be, so they're having cover zero here, 6-man rush is going on, and so for Green Bay, they're going to have Aaron Jones. He's going to be the guy who is blocking Kwiatkoski, so just right off the bat, this is a favorable matchup for Chicago. You have a linebacker going up against a halfback. You always love when that happens. But what's interesting here is that, Jones, he's not going to do what usually I recommend halfbacks to do. I think in this situation, what I want to see you do is just sort of lower the shoulder, just deliver one hit, just give yourself some time. Don't worry about fully finishing off this block. That's not what Jones does. Jones is going to say, you know what? I think I can block you. I'll put myself in position as if I'm an offensive lineman who can block you. Sure, why not? And, well, you'll see why not. Watch how Kwiatkoski just completely overpowers Jones, even swipes at the ball, but was not able to knock it out, but still a good awareness to just, try to see if you can get the ball out. Just a really dominant play, and, when you have a linebacker go up one-on-one against the halfback, you expect them to win that matchup, but what you hope is that they can dominate that matchup, and that's what he did. And I also think that he is, he gets the job done in coverage, no doubt about it. In my opinion, I think he can definitely still be a very solid coverage linebacker. And one of the things that he does well in coverage is sort of the same thing he does well in the running game, is he's just aware enough. Like on a play like this, it's going to be a cover one blitz, and his job is pretty simple. He's just going to make sure that he covers the tight end. Wherever the tight end goes, he follows him. That's the way it works. And after the ball is snapped, you notice that tight end is blocking here. That's what he's doing. And the reason why he's blocking here is because this is play action, and so Detroit is trying to sell as though it's going to be a run. They have their tight end start off blocking, but then he's going to run out to the sideline on the bottom of the screen. But if you look at Kwiatkoski, one thing that he's doing a pretty good job of on this play is he's not really getting fooled too much. I mean, you would see a lot of guys in this situation maybe run in and maybe try to, say, okay, he's blocking, so I'll run in and try to take him out of the play so that way I can free things up for some of my other players. But he realizes that if he does that, it could be a dangerous situation, because if the player that he's assigned to cover then runs a route, it could be a problem. And that really works out, because this is actually supposed to be a tight end screen, but Kwiatkoski was all over it and actually makes the tackle for a loss. Just a really, again, an aware play. That's kind of what he's going to bring to the table more than anything, is just a sense of awareness. I have a feeling that's why John Gruden and Mike Mayock and all of the biggest Raiders guys want to bring him on, is because he's someone who realizes what he's doing. He's a smart player, and that has a ton of value in the NFL. I really do feel like the Vegas Raiders are going to be such an interesting team to watch next season. They've made a lot of great moves this offseason. I've loved how they've gone about this entire rebuild. I've been with them the whole way. I hope that I'm right, because I do think that this is very interesting what they've done. They're one of the most unique teams in the NFL. I do also think that their division is just very difficult. I think that, looking at, obviously, they have the reigning champs in the Kansas City Chiefs. I do think Denver is going to surprise some people next season. And I also don't hate the Chargers, although I'm not quite so sure that Tyrod Taylor is the answer at quarterback. We'll also have to see how the draft goes. They have 2 picks in this draft, so we'll see what they decide to do with them. But I find this to be a very interesting situation. I'd like to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.